was apparently a pipe bomb go off in New Jersey, in Seaside Park, where it could have seriously injured our U.S. Marines and spectators who were there for a race. The bombing in the Chelsea neighborhood here in New York injured more than 24 people. The investigation is moving rapidly, and as is my practice, I'm going to leave it to the FBI and law enforcement to provide details. I think everybody is aware at this point that there is a person of interest who is the focus of the investigation.
And that person of interest, of course, Rahami, is going to be the focus of the beginning of our interview with the great John Yoo, law professor, UC Berkeley. He helped draft the enhanced interrogation memos after 9/11, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General at the Department of Justice, and author of the great book, Point of Attack, Preventive War, International Law, and Global Welfare. John, good to talk to you, sir.
Steve, thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. Let me ask you, I mean, I know, I read your piece in the Daily News, and I know your views on this. There's a lot of controversy. Donald Trump, I think, immediately said that, this guy who was shot and taken into custody, Rahami, is going to get the best hospital, the best lawyer, they're going to read him his rights, etc. And people said, well, he's an American citizen. He has to have his rights read to him. And I know that the Supreme Court has a public safety exemption to Miranda, and I know that you have said that terrorists like Rahami don't deserve their Miranda rights. I agree with you. Explain.
Well, what Rahami really is an enemy combatant. An enemy combatant is something we've long had in our laws, and it's the classification for someone who joins the enemy and fights against us. It doesn't matter whether you're a citizen or not. If you're a member of enemy forces against us, and if you are captured, you don't have to be stuck in the law enforcement system and given a lawyer and read your Miranda rights right away. Instead, you can be held, questioned, and never even sent to trial and held until the conflict is over. Unfortunately, I think in the Obama years, we have reflexively gotten into this crouched position where anyone who attacks us in the United States, from this guy to the San Bernardino to Orlando, you go on and on, the Tsarnaev brothers in the Boston Marathon are automatically considered to be criminal suspects rather than members of an enemy, and they're given their lawyers and Miranda warnings. The cost is that loses us the opportunity to get important information about any future attacks or the rest of the conspiracy while they can still be caught.
Now, do they have to find, in other words, they capture this guy. They don't yet see his journal. They don't yet see his website connections, who he's conversed with, who he's talked to, who he's been influenced by. Did he pledge allegiance to anybody? So is it enough that, when they get him, they don't read him his rights and say he's an enemy combatant based on assumption? Or do they have to have some kind of proof or reason to believe that he is an enemy combatant? And, I know and but not just for argument's sake, not just some nut who planted a bomb.
Yeah, I think it's a good question because, of course, we don't want to live in a country where we just assume everyone's a terrorist no matter what they do or who they are. I think what you do, should be pretty straightforward, is when you see a terrorist-style attack like this one that's designed to kill lots of civilians, it's not about stealing money, it's not about what we consider garden variety crime. I think our law enforcement intelligence people should be allowed to gather as much intelligence as possible, try to find out if there's any pending attacks. If it turns out this guy is not someone connected with terrorism, is not doing it for that reason, then you can read him his Miranda rights and his lawyer, give him his lawyer, and everything you did beforehand can't be used at his trial. The key, though, here has to be we're losing our focus on the need to get intelligence in a fast-moving environment to stop future attacks. That's what it should be all about. That's why I worry about what some of our national leaders from Obama and Hillary Clinton, they make it sound like the whole point of this is just catching people to subject them to trial. That's over. That's after the attack already occurs. We need to do what's necessary to prevent the next attacks from happening.
Right. That's why I laugh when Hillary says we need better intelligence gathering. And, of course, Barack Obama and the left and people like Hillary have done all they can do to end the enhanced interrogations, to end surveillance and FBI discretion and police discretion in surveilling mosques or other Muslim gathering places or people that they feel might be of interest. So they've handcuffed us more than anybody, and at the same time, at the other side of her mouth, she says we need better intelligence.
Yeah, I actually don't hear anything new coming out of Hillary Clinton or from President Obama that says anything about how we would do things differently. I think they seem to feel there's just a certain level of damage that we're just going to accept passively in our country and not change policy at all.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. Let me ask you a question. In the indictment, the federal complaint against Ahmed Rahami, and I think it's almost a rhetorical question, but I'd love to hear your what this means legally. There's no mention of ISIS. Fox News did a whole story on this yesterday. There is no mention or reference to ISIS in the complaint, when in fact there's plenty of evidence that he was influenced by ISIS and that that was a driving force. They've seen his communications, etc. And many people feel that this is purposely done to whitewash any role ISIS might have played in influencing this man for political reasons. Is this going to hurt, in your view, that they've politicized, if that's what they've done, this complaint and indictment?
Yes, there's two angles to this. One is eventually, sooner or later, to prove their case, the prosecution are going to want to prove a link between Rahami and whatever terrorist group it was. That's why it is terrorism, because he is doing this because he's connected to or associated himself with some terrorist group. You can't just say he associates himself with terrorism generally. It has to be a specific group. I don't know why the government isn't stating that's ISIS. As you say, there's evidence that he traveled to Afghanistan, to Pakistan. He should have been, and this goes to the second angle, maybe it's an effort to downplay the mistakes that were made, because this is not someone who somehow slipped through a net. This is a guy whose father turned him in. Yeah. This is a guy who traveled to Afghanistan and Pakistan. You would think that the FBI should be questioning anyone who's traveling to Afghanistan these days, and somehow, so they might be doing it because they don't want to draw attention to the mistakes that were made that prevented us from red flagging and taking a closer look at him when we should have.
Very interesting. Now, let me ask you about these police shootings and what's going on. I'm kind of shocked that the protests are all taking place. So with the Charlotte shooting, I mean, if any one of the two raised a red flag more so than the other, it's Tulsa. It seems more questionable, although according to cops and her lawyer, this gentleman disobeyed from the get-go and looked suspicious for trying to reach into his car. But let's focus on what's going on here. And you have an attorney general comes out today and says to the protesters, "We hear you." Same stuff that they said in Baltimore. Meanwhile, they're literally rioting and looting, and literally in instances, which I showed on the air already today, blacks going after white people and beating them up. And Attorney General comes out and doesn't say anything about that, and the president is silent altogether.
I think what you said is exactly right, and what it shows is that these protests and the damage and destruction and chaos often doesn't have anything to do with what actually happened. I think there are people who are just taking advantage of unfortunate uses of force by the police, some justified, maybe some are not. We don't know all the facts yet. But from what I've seen in Charlotte, it looked like a justified use of force. This guy apparently had a gun.
Right.
There are people who want to take advantage of this for political purposes to advance some kind of progressive cause, or just anarchists or people who want to attack the police. I think this is another, unfortunately, big failing of the Obama administration. Instead of coming out and saying you have a right to protest, but property destruction and harm to other people, interfering with movement and traffic is illegal. Instead, they sort of give it all a blank check. And I think that's the other thing that's happening, is these people who are taking advantage of it know that the government's not going to try to stop them.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. John, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be with you.
Folks, conservatives can and must retake the White House and prevent a third term of the radical policies of Barack Obama. This victory can happen only if we learn from the disastrous defeats of 08 and 012. In his new book, Armageddon, How Trump Can Beat Hillary, famed political analyst and New York Times bestselling author Dick Morris breaks down the issues and spells out the strategies that can lead to a decisive conservative victory in November. The best hope of rolling back Obama's ruinous socialist actions. Now, in Armageddon, a #1 bestseller on Amazon, Dick Morris reveals exactly how conservatives can stop Obama's secret plan to extend his influence and policies by electing Hillary Clinton. With the 2016 election just days away, be sure to get your copy of Dick Morris's political blockbuster, Armageddon. It's available in bookstores everywhere, or get our free offer for Armageddon by calling the toll-free number or go online to get your copy of Armageddon with this free offer.